We moved down the stairs together, one slow step at a time, listening for the sound that had broken the fragile moment upstairs. Every creak from the wood felt sharper now, like the house was warning us or punishing us for whatever almost happened between us. Fad walked ahead, tense, jaw tight, shoulders squared the way they get when he's fighting something inside himself. Maybe fear or maybe guilt or maybe me. The living room was dim, the shadows longer than before. Nothing was out of place. Nothing moved, but the air felt different, heavier, charged. Watching, I swear I heard something, I whispered. So did I. He scanned the room again, eyes narrowed, chest rising and falling too fast. Not just from fear. From everything in the bedroom. Everything between us. That was the part neither of us knew how to confront. He turned to me suddenly. We need to forget tonight happened. The words hit harder than I expected. To forget the noise. Or forget, I stopped before I said too much. Before I said us, but he understood anyway. His eyes flickered with something pained. All of it, he said. Everything that, almost, he swallowed. Everything. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was suffocating. You think we can just erase it? I asked. Do we have to? His voice was firm, but his hands, shaking slightly, betrayed him. He wasn't trying to convince me. He was trying to convince himself. I stepped closer before I could stop myself. Fad, he stepped back immediately, like my presence burned. Don't, he said, too sharply. Please. I can't, right now. The words weren't angry, they were desperate. He ran a hand over his face, exhaling shakily. Aisha comes home tomorrow. My stomach tightened. I know. She'll feel something's off. His voice cracked. She always does. The guilt twisted deeper inside me. I don't want to hurt her. Neither do I, he whispered. Which is why whatever this is, whatever we let happen tonight, it ends here. But the way he said it, like a man trying to drop a weight he'd been carrying too long, made it clear this wasn't the end for him at all. He turned away, walking toward the kitchen, pretending to fix the curtain, pretending to breathe normally. Pretending to be the same man he was before the lights went out, but he wasn't, and neither was I. I watched him open the cabinet, hands trembling as he reached for a glass. The sound of it tapping against the shelf echoed too loudly. He poured water. Spilled some. He didn't look at me, and not once. The distance between us now felt larger than the whole house. Larger than the storm. Larger than the truth we'd almost spoken. Finally he said, after tonight, we don't talk about this again. What if I can't pretend? I asked softly. His jaw tightened. He didn't turn around. You have to. A long, heavy silence settled, then a loud knock rattled the front door. We both froze. Another knock, harder, urgent. Fad's eyes shot toward me finally, wide, fearful, confused. Who would come this late? I whispered. He didn't answer. A third knock, this one sharp enough to shake the doorframe, then a familiar voice on the other side. Fad? Are you home? Open the door, please. My blood turned to ice. It was Aisha, hours early, unexpected, standing on the other side of everything we had just broken. Fad's face went pale. He looked at me, and in that one terrified glance, I knew, whatever happened next would change everything forever. If you want, I can now write the next part, or turn this into a full 4,000-word complete script with all sections polished and aligned perfectly. The sound from the hallway faded almost as quickly as it appeared, but the silence that followed felt even heavier. Fad straightened, shoulders tensing beneath his damp t-shirt, and for a moment we just stood there, two grown men frozen in the dim kitchen, listening to nothing, but that nothing was somehow louder than the thunder outside. I forced a breath. Probably the wind, I said, even though I didn't believe it. There's no window open, he answered quietly. He was right. I swallowed. Maybe the cat. He shook his head. She's sleeping on the couch. Again, silence again, that strange tension, thick as the humid air after rain. Fad brushed past me and walked toward the hallway. I caught the faint scent of his cologne, sandalwood, and something darker, something warm. It had always been just a smell before. Normal. Forgettable, but tonight it clung to me. He reached the hallway and paused. Stay here, he said, half commanding. Or why? I followed him anyway. He looked back at me, jaw tight. Because if someone's inside, There's no one inside, I insisted, trying to sound rational, even though my pulse was doing wild things. He stared at me in a way that made it clear he didn't trust the situation. Or maybe he didn't trust himself. His eyes lingered on mine for a second too long, and I felt that same shift again, the one I'd felt earlier in the kitchen. A pull. A quiet, dangerous curiosity, but before I could think too much about it, he stepped into the darkness of the hallway. The house groaned under the weight of the storm. Shadows stretched across the walls, moving like slow waves. The air smelled faintly of rain-soaked soil drifting in through the cracked window in the living room. Nothing about the night felt normal anymore. Not the quiet, not the house, not Fad, especially not Fad. He walked toward the guest room, the room I'd been staying in for the past few months while searching for a new apartment. The door was half open. He nudged it with his fingertips. Nothing. He inhaled deeply. "See? Told you," I said, my voice softer than I wanted it to be. He didn't answer immediately. Thought I heard something. He turned around slowly, and as he passed me again, the look in his eyes wasn't fear anymore. It was something else, something that made my stomach coil. "Let's go back," he said. We returned to the kitchen, though neither of us sat down. The thunder had eased into a steady drizzle, tapping lazily against the windows. The flickering light stabilized, but the atmosphere did not. Fad leaned against the counter again, staring at the floor as though the answers to whatever he was wrestling with were hidden in the tiles. His fingers drummed restlessly. "You've been acting weird," I said before I could stop myself. His head lifted slowly. "Weird?" I shrugged. "You're quiet. Uncomfortable. And you keep looking at me like..." I stopped. "Like what?" Like he wanted to say something, like he wanted to confess something, like he wanted to understand something inside himself. He finished my sentence for me. "Like I'm thinking too much." I almost laughed. "Yeah. Exactly." He nodded once, eyes dropping again. "I have been." "About what?" His silence stretched long enough that I regretted asking. Maybe I shouldn't have pushed. Maybe the storm was messing with both our heads. But then he said something I did not expect. "About you." The words hit me so hard I forgot to breathe. "Me? Why me?" I forced a shaky laugh. "What? Why?" Again, he hesitated. Again, too long. "Just stuff," he muttered. "You've been going through a lot lately. I've noticed." "That's not what you meant," I said quietly. He looked up sharply, eyes almost defensive. "You think you know what I meant?" I stepped closer without realizing I had. "Then tell me." He held my gaze. The storm rumbled faintly in the distance, like the world itself was listening. "You wouldn't understand," he whispered. "Try me." Another hesitation. Another beat of silence, then he turned away, exhaling sharply. "Forget I said anything." But I couldn't forget, not when the air between us felt alive with unspoken words. Not when his voice had cracked slightly. Not when the storm seemed to dim every sound except our breathing. He walked to the stove and grabbed the kettle, pretending he needed tea. Pretending steam and boiling water could distract from the tension that had been building all night. I leaned against the opposite counter, watching him. I'd always seen him as my sister's husband. My brother-in-law. A man with his life together, good job, good family, stable, responsible, straight. Straight in the way men like him usually are. Straight in the way nobody ever questions. But tonight, he looked breakable, conflicted, lonely. Even. "You don't have to shut me out," I said quietly. He didn't turn around. "I'm not shutting you out." "You are." He put the kettle down harder than necessary, and the metallic clang echoed in the quiet kitchen. "Can we just drop it?" He sounded frustrated. Or afraid. Or both. I took a step toward him. Fad. This time he spun around, and suddenly he was too close, closer than any brother-in-law should be. His breath brushed my cheek before either of us realized how little distance there was between us. His voice lowered. "Please. Don't push." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Then tell me what's going on." His eyes flicked down, just once, barely noticeable. But I noticed, then they shot back up to mine. Something inside him tightened. Something inside me responded. "I can't," he whispered. "Why?" Because if I say it, he swallowed hard, I don't know what happens after. The room felt suddenly smaller. The rain softer. The world quieter. What if nothing has to happen? I asked, though even I wasn't sure what I meant. He shook his head. It's not that simple. Maybe it is. It's not, he repeated. Not for me. Not for you. Not for Aisha. His voice broke slightly on her name. My chest tightened with guilt, even though nothing had happened. Even though we were just talking, but the possibility that something could happen, that was the real danger. I would never hurt her, I said softly. His jaw flexed. I know. Then what are you afraid of? He exhaled, long and shaky. Myself. The confession hung in the air like smoke, quiet, thick, impossible to ignore. I stepped back, needing space to breathe. My mind raced. My heart hammered. My skin felt hot, overstimulated by the weight of his gaze. He watched me carefully, as though waiting for me to judge him. To say something cruel. To say something he already feared. Instead, I whispered, "You're not the only one confused." His eyes widened just slightly, just enough. The kettle began to whistle softly, but neither of us moved to turn it off. What are we doing? He murmured. I don't know, I answered honestly. A crack of lightning illuminated the kitchen for a split second, casting sharp shadows across his face. He looked torn apart by something I couldn't yet name. He took one small step toward me. I didn't move. Another step. Still, I didn't move. His breathing grew uneven. Tell me to stop, he whispered. I should have. I knew I should have, but the words didn't come, and not because I wanted something forbidden to happen, not because I had some hidden desire, but because something inside him was breaking open, and I had never seen Fad, the perfect husband, the stable one, look so human. So vulnerable. So close. Tell me to stop, he repeated, almost begging. I opened my mouth. But before I could say anything, the lights flickered violently, the kettle shut off abruptly, and that dragging sound echoed again, this time louder, unmistakable, coming from the living room. Fad stiffened. I froze. The storm was no longer the most dangerous thing in the house. If you want, I'll continue with the climactic moment, 800 to 1,200 words, in the same tense, emotionally charged style. The morning started like any other, quiet, slow, the kind of stillness that made every sound echo a little louder than usual. A pale winter sun slipped through the half-open curtains of my room, laying long, thin stripes of light across the floor. Outside, the wind brushed against the windows in irregular sighs, as if the house itself were trying to wake up but kept falling back into a deeper sleep. I sat at the edge of my bed, elbows on my knees, hands clasped. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular, just letting my thoughts drift the way dust floats when sunlight finds it. Peaceful, calm, almost too calm. That's when I heard it. A soft thud somewhere down the hallway. Not loud. Not alarming. Just out of place. I froze for a moment, listening. The sound didn't come again. Maybe the old house settling, I told myself. Maybe the wind pushing against something loose. But something in me tightened anyway, a small knot forming right below my ribs. I had learned to trust my instincts over the years, and in that moment, they whispered one thing clearly: "You're not alone." I shook off the thought and stood up. The floorboards creaked under my steps as I walked toward the door. The air in the hallway felt colder than my room, carrying that faint, familiar scent of old wood and distant memories. Everything looked exactly the same, yet somehow different. Maybe it was me who'd changed. I'd been restless for days, though I couldn't point to a reason. Little things bothered me more than they should: shadows in corners, doors left slightly ajar, the eerie quiet that lingered after midnight. And then there was him. Arslan. My housemate. My friend. No. I cut the thought off before it formed completely. He'd moved in 3 months ago, and everything since then felt a little off balance. Not in a dramatic way, just enough to keep me aware of him. His footsteps. His late-night tea. The way his presence filled a room even when he didn't say a word. We never talked about anything personal. We never crossed a line. We lived like two calm rivers running beside each other, parallel, peaceful, predictable. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. As I walked toward the kitchen, I noticed the faintest glow spilling out from beneath the door. Strange. He wasn't usually awake this early. And I definitely hadn't turned on the lights last night. That knot inside me tightened again. My hand hovered over the doorknob. I could hear something now, barely audible. Breathing? A shifting of weight? Or maybe my own heart pounding too loudly. Why am I nervous? The question came like a whisper in my mind, fragile and unwanted. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. Something was waiting on the other side of that door, something small, something subtle, but something that would change the tone of the morning and maybe the tone of everything after. With a final breath, I pushed the kitchen door open, and that's when it began. If you want, I can now continue with the rising action, 1,200 to 1,500 words, following the exact structure you gave. It had been one of those evenings when everything feels too quiet for no real reason. My sister, Aisha, had taken the kids to stay with our mother for the weekend. She'd left laughing, shouting reminders from the doorway about feeding the cat and not burning the house down. She always trusted me with everything, maybe more than she should have. Her husband, Fad, had stayed behind. He said he had work. He said he needed silence. He said a lot of things that night. I remember the house smelling like ginger tea and old wood. The kind of smell you don't notice until something important is about to happen. The lights were dim because one of the bulbs kept flickering, giving the living room this uneven glow, soft, warm on one side, shadowy on the other. And there he was, Fad, tall, broad-shouldered, hair slightly damp from the rain he'd just run through. He had that careless, almost annoyingly perfect confidence straight men always seem to have without trying. But that night, something about him felt unsettled. His eyes stayed on me longer than usual. His voice dipped lower. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Maybe I imagined it, maybe I wanted to imagine it. I still don't know. He leaned against the kitchen counter, scrolling his phone with a frown tightening between his brows. You heard from Aisha? I asked, just to break the weird silence. Yeah, he said without looking up. They just reached. Weather's getting worse though, roads are flooding. He finally lifted his head, and the look he gave me held something I couldn't place, concern, exhaustion, or something entirely different. I swallowed hard. You okay? He hesitated, just for a second. A very small second. But I caught it. Long day, he murmured. Long week. I nodded, but the air between us shifted, thickened, almost. Like the storm outside had slipped into the room with us. A crack of thunder rattled the window. He flinched. That surprised me. Fad never flinched at anything. I stepped closer, instinctively. You sure you're all right? His jaw tightened the way it does when he's holding something back, just tired. And he stopped. And what? I asked. The kitchen lights flickered again, off, on, off, and when they steadied, he was suddenly looking at me with an intensity he'd never shown before. A look nobody is supposed to give their brother -in-law. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. He opened his mouth like he was about to say something he shouldn't, and then a sound echoed from down the hallway. A soft, dragging noise, too slow to be footsteps, too deliberate to be the wind. We both turned toward the dark corridor. What was that? He whispered. I didn't know, but I knew one thing. Whatever happened next would change everything. If you want, I can continue with the rising action, 1,200. 1,500 words, in the same tone and depth. The dragging sound moved through the living room like something pulling itself across the floor. Too slow. Too deliberate. Too real to ignore this time. Fad's eye shot toward the darkened doorway. You heard that? He whispered. I nodded, throat dry. He stepped in front of me instinctively, almost protectively, which only made the knot in my stomach twist tighter. The house seemed to breathe around us, the storm muting everything except our own uneven breaths. Stay behind me, he said, but I didn't. I followed him to the living room anyway. The room was dim, lit only by the occasional flash of lightning that briefly carved out the furniture in harsh silhouettes. The TV screen glowed faintly from the last channel someone had watched before the storm knocked the connection out, a frozen frame of light across the carpet. Everything looked normal except the rug was shifted slightly and the hallway closet door, usually closed, was open by just an inch. Fad swallowed. That wasn't open before. He stepped forward, and without thinking, I grabbed his wrist. He froze. We both did. His skin was warm under my fingers. Too warm. His pulse quickened for a moment. The fear in the room mixed with something else, something charged, fragile, dangerous. He gently pulled his hand free, eyes lingering on mine longer than necessary. Let me check. My chest tightened. Be careful. He walked toward the closet slowly, one hand on the doorknob, the other balled into a fist like he was preparing for the worst. The storm outside rattled the windows, thunder rolling beneath our feet. He yanked the closet open, empty, just coats, shoes, a stack of old umbrellas, and nothing that could have made that dragging noise. See? It was nothing, he said, trying to sound relieved, but his voice shook. So did mine when I answered. Then what did we hear? He didn't respond. Another flash of lightning illuminated our reflections in the window, him standing a few feet away, tense and alert, me standing behind him, heart pounding, both of us trapped in a moment that felt heavier than the storm. And then the lights went out, everything plunged into darkness. I heard his breath, sharp, quick. Stay close, he said, but in the dark, close meant something else entirely. I reached out blindly and found his arm. He didn't pull away this time. Instead, he stepped toward me, so close our shoulders brushed. His voice softened. It's just a power cut. But he didn't move away, and neither did I. For a long moment, the storm outside was the only sound. The electricity in the air wasn't just in the atmosphere, it was between us, thick and undeniable. Fad, I whispered. I didn't even know what I meant to say. He turned toward my voice. Yeah? You're shaking. So are you. Lightning flashed again, and in the brief, bluish light, our faces were inches apart. His eyes looked different, not scared anymore, worried, conflicted, wanting something he knew he shouldn't. He stepped back suddenly, running a hand through his hair. We shouldn't, his breath hitched. I shouldn't even be, he shook his head. This is wrong. He said the words, but his voice betrayed him. It cracked, revealing something deeper, a war inside him. I know, I whispered. But you're not the only one confused. He looked at me again, and this time he didn't hide the fear in his eyes. Not fear of me, fear of himself. You don't understand, he said softly. I've been trying not to think about this. About you. My breath caught. About me? He nodded, jaw trembling slightly. I don't know when it started. I don't know why. And I hate myself for it. Guilt, shame, longing, all crashing into each other in every word he said. I stepped closer, slow enough to give him space to move away. He didn't. Fad, I said gently, you're allowed to feel things. Not these things, he whispered harshly, then tell me what they are. He closed his eyes like the question physically hurt him. When he opened them again, something raw was shining there. Lightning flashed once more, bright enough for me to see the storm inside him, brighter than the one outside. His chest rose and fell quickly. I shouldn't want, he stopped. He tried again. I shouldn't feel like this near you. My pulse jumped. Like what? His breath trembled out of him. Like I'm losing control. The words hit me like thunder. He stepped back, running a hand over his face. I'm married. To your sister. His voice broke. And you're my, he stopped again, unable to finish the sentence. This can't happen. I know, I whispered, but the way he was looking at me, torn, conflicted, desperate, told a different story. A story neither of us wanted to read, but both of us were somehow already part of. He exhaled shakily. Tell me to stop thinking about you. I can't. Why not? He demanded, voice cracking. Because I don't want to lie to you, I said quietly. He stared at me like he was waiting for me to say something that could pull him back from whatever edge he was standing on, but I had nothing. I was on the same edge. The storm rumbled again, shaking the windows. The shadows danced across the floor. And in the darkness, I heard him whisper something so soft the thunder almost swallowed it. I don't know how to walk away. I took a slow breath. Then don't. He shook his head. If I don't, his voice trembled, I won't be able to pretend anymore. Lightning flashed violently, illuminating his face, anguish carved into every line. I stepped forward. He didn't step back. Our breaths mingled, our shadows blended on the wall. The storm howled through the house like it knew something was about to break. Tell me to go, he whispered again, almost begging. Tell me before I do something I can't undo. but I was frozen, caught between morality and something dangerously human, and then a loud crash came from upstairs. We both jolted, something heavy, something real, something that didn't sound like the storm. Fad's eyes widened. What was that? I didn't know, but I knew one thing with terrifying clarity: whatever was happening upstairs would force us to confront everything we'd been avoiding, everything we were afraid to say, everything we were becoming. If you want, I'll continue with the falling action, 600 to 800 words, in the same dramatic, suspense-driven emotional tone. The crash upstairs echoed in my bones, lingering like a warning. The house had never felt so alive, or so hostile, and for a second neither of us could move. Fad's voice was low, breathless. Stay here. I'm not letting you go alone, I said. He didn't argue. He just nodded, small, reluctant, and together we climbed the stairs, one slow step at a time. The storm outside had grown quieter, but inside the house, every creak felt amplified. The metal railing was cold under my hand. Fad walked ahead of me, shoulders stiff, every muscle in his back tight with adrenaline. At the top of the stairs, we paused again. Everything was dark, too dark. Should we turn on the light? I whispered. He shook his head. If it's an intruder, we don't want to give them an advantage. His logic made sense, but something in his tone, low, rough, protective, hit me deeper than it should have. Even in fear, he was thinking about me. Even now. We reached the door of the master bedroom, half open, shadows spilling out like ink. Fad pushed it with 2 fingers. The room was a mess. The lamp had fallen off the nightstand. The curtains were shaking from the wind creeping through a cracked window. The framed picture of him and my sister lay face down on the carpet, nothing else. No sign of anyone. He let out a shaky exhale. Must have been the wind. But neither of us believed that the window wasn't open earlier. He stepped inside and slowly picked up the picture frame. He stared at it, at her, long enough that guilt cracked across his face like lightning. She trusts me, he whispered. The tone of it, broken, fragile, made something inside me twist painfully. I know, I said gently. He kept staring at the photo, shoulders trembling. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know why I keep, his voice dropped. Why I keep feeling things I shouldn't. The confession hung heavy between us. I stepped closer, slow and careful. You're human. That's all. He finally looked at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes hit harder than the storm ever could. That's not an excuse. I'm not giving you an excuse, I whispered. I'm just telling you the truth. He set the picture down, face up this time, but he couldn't look directly at it. Instead, he walked past me and leaned against the wall, running a hand through his hair. The silence grew thick again, like the house itself was holding its breath. I don't want to hurt her, he said, voice hoarse. Or you? And you haven't, I replied. Yes, I have. His jaw tightened. You don't see what I see. You don't feel what I feel. Then tell me, I said. He closed his eyes like he wished I hadn't asked. If I say it, I won't be able to take it back. Slow pacing, shallow breaths, emotion sharpened to a needlepoint. I took one more step. Close enough that I could see the stormlight flicker across his eyelashes. Maybe you don't need to take it back, I said softly. His eyes opened, slowly, painfully, like lifting a weight too heavy to bear. You think this is simple? No, I said. But I think pretending won't make it go away. He flinched, a small movement, but enough to show the impact of the truth. We stood there in the dim room, the stormlight weaving through the curtains, painting shifting patterns across the walls. His breath trembled. Mine wasn't much steadier. Then something shifted. Maybe it was the quiet, maybe it was the darkness, maybe it was simply time. His hand lifted, slow, hesitant, like he wasn't sure if he was reaching for me or stopping himself. It hovered midway, not touching, not retreating, just suspended. A question without words. My heart stuttered. Fad, I whispered. He didn't move his hand. He didn't pull it back. His voice came out barely audible. I shouldn't. I know. I can't. I know. He exhaled a breath that trembled like it was made from something fragile. Then why can't I stop wanting to? I didn't answer. I didn't know how the air between us stretched thin, trembling, ready to break at the slightest touch. Then, footsteps slowed like a reel downstairs. We both turned sharply. Someone, or something, was moving again. The moment we'd been trapped in shattered instantly, leaving behind only the echo of everything that almost happened. Fad's expression hardened. Not emotionally, he wasn't that composed, but with fear. With instinct. "We're not alone," he whispered. His half-raised hand finally dropped, but not toward me, toward the staircase. Whatever waited below, whatever we were about to face, would decide what happened next, between us, within us, and with everything we'd been trying so hard not to admit. If you want, I'll continue with the conclusion. Cliffhanger, 400 to 600 words, in the same style, ending with a shocking, dramatic unresolved moment.